This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Squarespace, the fastest, easiest, most complete, and most user-friendly way to create your own professional website, portfolio, blog, or online store. If you go to squarespace.com and use the offer code THUMBS, you can get 10% off your first order, and if you sign up for a year, you get a free domain name thrown in there. Go to squarespace.com with the offer code THUMBS.
Nick is satisfied.
All right, let's make some good content.
It's April 6th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 257. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Hey,
and
guys.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for completing the circle.
This week in gaming, space shit.
I don't know if this conversation is going to have enough meat on it to be like worthwhile, but I guess we'll find out. Crazy shit apparently has been going down in the world of EVE Online, which is the crazy spaceship MMO made by CCP that is like notoriously boring if you don't really have anything to do in it. No, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. But
It's
like,
pretty boring.
The sense I get is that if you don't have like a sort of reason to exist in the game, like something to like
life,
work towards or whatever, you kind of just sort of...
It's not like life, I don't think. I mean, I feel like EVE is increasingly like... EVE aesthetically presents as a fun space game. The actual purpose of EVE is to just be conniving and destroy each other in some sort of weird thing. If a stock exchange, a Wall Street stock exchange, looked from the outside like Tomorrowland at Disneyland, so you're like, wow, look at that, it's amazing, and then you walk in and go, I think that people are just, and then you realize, oh my god, this is just the craziest fucking shit.
Yeah, then like 3 levels underground is...
The final level,
real
though,
crazy shit.
is really just like, the D-Day shot of all of the, landing craft hitting the beach, and then you getting out of the landing craft and immediately dying, because that's the actual experience of playing a battle in EVE. It's just like, oh wow, these ships are like coordinating and like...
I was watching a video and he narrated like an Attenborough documentary or something.
Right.
And it was, just like thousands and thousands of ships and like all of the firepower and everything and like huge formations. And he highlighted like individual alliances, and even those were like relatively small clusters relative to like the insane scale of the total mega battle being fought. And he was like, you could be one of these ships, like, and I'm just like, oh,
that's
weird.
The last thing I'd want to ever hear. So we should talk about why we're talking about EVE.
We should actually.
So
something happened in it.
Yeah. Nick, do you have any like ability to sort of summarize what has been going on?
I realized while reading about
10 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of. So like when I was playing this game,
which was in the like early mid
2007.
10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. God. I embedded essentially into in EVE, they're not called like guilds, they're called corporations. So I was like embedded in like the Goons Swarm Corporation, which was an offshoot of the Something Awful forums, which, at the time was kind of this like scrappy upstart thing, and then has since become like this enormous like mega. So I didn't realize reading about this that they've since like transformed several times. Like they're no longer Goon Swarm now. They went from Goon Swarm to like this
small component of this, like it went from like Goon Swarm Corporation to like Goon Swarm Alliance.
Well, yes,
to,
that
like,
was
the CFC, like the
CFC, I think,
coalition.
Yeah,
which then rebranded as into its current.
So you know
form,
what this
the
is?
Imperium,
yeah,
which is like a major power in the world of
this
EVE.
is so. I think the way that this works, from what I observed back then, is that it's just a bunch of people kind of jazzing themselves up to play EVE. And they can kind of do it for like a year and pretend that it's going to be exciting, and then when they realize that it's actually there's like the one big battle, and then how do you like that's what we were here for, we did it, and then they just stop playing, and then they come back, and when they come back they rebrand themselves.
Yeah, although there are
essentially.
clearly figures who have persisted. Like the reason I asked you to
it's the
explain
Wolf of Wall Street.
is 'cause, yeah, you
of Eve.
So when Nick and I worked at Shack News together, which was just a video game website, Nick wrote this amazing pair of articles. I think it was 2 pieces.
It was like 3 or 4.
Okay. It was a series about
a few of them are lost.
EVE Online. Oh, it's a bummer. Yeah. So when Nick was saying he embedded, he did these incredibly well reported and really gripping pieces about like the crazy diplomacy and intrigue and espionage of EVE Online corporations and alliances, mainly like centering on Goonfleet.
Yeah.
And it was, or Goon Swarm, or whichever. They have like Goon Wafa and like all these different.
Goonfleet
really
was the sort of,
So,
organizing hierarchy.
Yeah, and the like central figure in one of the pieces you did, who was a central figure in the Goon whatever, also was this guy, the Matani.
Yeah.
Who apparently is still a really central figure.
Yeah.
In all of this stuff, which was crazy to read.
He's had a weird... So, I mean, like, after that period of time, he had enough articles written about him that he kind of became a sort of mini celebrity, like Eve celebrity, to the extent that I think... I know that CCP, the developers of this game, made him kind of the official community point of contact. So he had, like, an official role within the sort of Eve... development community, and then like promptly lost to that role because he did something stupid at one of their events. Anyway, this guy is just sort of fluctuated between being like the coolest guy in the Eve sphere and the lamest guy, and right now he seems to be the lamest guy. Right now. So like from what I can understand, the Imperium, which is the sort of new version of Goonfleet, is just about to be destroyed by this weird alliance of other fleets. But the way that it got to this point is the interesting aspect of it, where like apparently, so like the people are just pissed off that the Matani is. I guess he had like a failed Kickstarter to write a novel about Eve to promote the Imperium.
So what was, there was like CCP was backing a Kickstarter for someone to write a book about the history of this like incredible war that happened in EVE Online. But it turns out that the book was going to be published by the Matani Press, which was owned by this guy, the Matani, obviously. And a lot of EVE players were extremely mad about this because the obvious implication of this is like, oh, this book is going to be extremely sympathetic to like the victors of this war, and not to like.
Oh no, the history is written by the Matani in this case. I mean, he's
like
completely.
And so there was a huge backlash, and the losers of this war. One of the major losers of this war were Test Alliance. Please ignore. Which was a Reddit alliance that was, I think, basically disintegrated as a result of this conflict.
What a good name,
but it's,
though.
Yeah, I know. But its members are, still like, there's like a diaspora of them still in the game. And I think the backlash to this Kickstarter caused the Kickstarter to fail and like set in motion all of these like feelings of betrayal and frustration that led to this. But
then on top of that, there's this website apparently called I Want ISK, which is ISK is the currency in EVE. And if you don't know, you can actually, I guess this is true of many MMOs at this point.
ISK to dollars has a...
ISK to dollars is real because you can buy time cards to play EVE using ISK. And so people use time cards as a way to essentially like sell off their ISK and turn them into dollars, right? And that it was sort of the first online game where this was happening as just a matter of course. Like people were essentially funding their subscription fee by playing the game well, and making a ton of money.
The thing with I Want ISK is that it has slot machines.
Yes,
right?
So I Want ISK is essentially just a gambling site, and apparently one of the guys that runs that. I guess like got in some kind of just dramatic tiff with a Goonfleet dude, and hired some people to go out and just assassinate this guy.
for an amount of like a crazy amount of money.
Yeah, which then I guess just spiraled into a full-on like proxy war. Like that they're now just, this gambling site is now just funding a war against the Mittani.
I think the equivalent of like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm really loving all of this stuff because Goonfleet started off as Goonfleet, then renamed themselves the Imperium, and now there's this weird rebel coalition fighting them. It has echoes of Star Wars, but it is the most capitalistic, bankrolled, insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Weird libertarian space nightmare version of Star Wars.
It's
really delicious.
When I was reading some of this stuff, I was just thinking about like how much the thing that is kind of amazing about this universe is that it is kind of self-regulating in the sense that like not the end of my
in the way that reality should be.
No, I mean like in a way that you could imagine reality would be, in the sense that like extreme power eventually is toppled because of like, you know, disgruntled people and like coalitions and so on, except that to get to those points just always requires insane like loss of life and property and like faith. And like, I mean, it's just the most destructive possible way to actually regulate a society. But it technically works in like a fantasy world where it doesn't really matter if $20,000 worth of fake spaceships blow up. But like, it actually made me think a lot about like extreme libertarianism and like, you know, super unregulated
It's the version
economies.
of Star Wars though that is conveniently cut out of Star Wars, where Princess Leia doesn't have to be like, well, we bought these battle cruisers because this one Hutt was really fucking pissed that the Empire squished his shit and he's paying for this ship. Anyway, we're going to have to fucking give those guys a planet once we blow up the Death Star. Like, that is not mentioned in Star Wars, but it's got to be a part of it. Cause
that's what they tried to mention in Star Wars Episode 1.
Yeah, not
that's
quite,
true. Yeah,
though. I sort of.
They should have
The
just
Goonfleet Trade Federation.
Copied all this shit from Eve.
Copied and pasted out of embedded Eve articles. Could have been the good Star Wars prequels. Yeah,
this would actually, I feel like that would be there would be a way to, I think, probably script this stuff in the style of a show like the Battlestar Galactica remake or something. Like, you could probably make a super cutthroat, because we have stuff like House of Cards now, which is not obviously on the, like, about economics in the same way, but it's like
nor is it in space.
No, nor is it in space. But I just mean it's a very like
not this season
cutthroat. No, but the show has been a sort of a very cutthroat, like horse trading, like individual betrayals and alliances. Like you could make something of like galactic scale again, like on the sort of budgetary realm of something like Battlestar Galactica, and I think it would probably work. Like, it would be a crazy, interesting thing to attempt.
I mean, most of the drama occurs outside of the game, you know, like on forums and through all these channels. So what you do is just take all of that,
and
that's your script for, like, all of the scenes in which it's just people in a weird room, discussing.
We had to buy the rights to all of these people's story likenesses, and we had to pay them in ISK to make our Netflix original Eve teledrama.
Right, called I Want ISK.
Season 1, episode 1, I Want ISK. Season 1, episode 2, Test Alliance, please ignore.
They don't change any of the names. So the Clusterfuck Alliance, Test Alliance, please ignore. Clusterfuck Coalition.
Yeah, it's a weird fucking thing. This version, like, it feels like, Nick, to what you're saying about Eve, like, sort of destroying and rebuilding itself over and over again, it does that, but the cycle is not a pure loop, because the escalation does seem to happen every single time.
Oh yeah,
like this one.
All of these shared memories also they accrete. Like they all stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're always the Russians. They may be under a different name. But they're always there, and they're always a presence. It's true.
The Imperium is this huge group. But Polygon wrote an article about this that we read before recording this, and the thing that I love is the people who are against the Imperium disparagingly refer to them as the Goons still. We're like, oh, those Goons, just Goons. I don't want Goons telling me what to do, fucking Goons. And, like, they self-identified as Goonfleet a decade ago, and now they have this hilarious, slick, clearly sarcastic branding.
Yeah.
But they're, like,
and
people remember the old names.
Did you see the photo of the weird space pope?
Yes.
Like the weird, 45-year-old balding man.
There's a
with,
there's a cosplay, there's an Eve cosplayer who plays basically a religious deity who the Imperium has now
he goes by the name, I think, Maximilian Singularity the Sixth, first of his name.
And the Imperium has decided that he is actually their religious deity.
Yeah.
So it's continuing to grow. But it does feel like Eve is this weird cordoned off space, like a window into an actual galaxy of existence that exists out there. But it is also just that it feels so strange that in the internet there is this weird sort of sphere that contains all of infinite space in it, and it is just the place that people go to pretend to do all this weird space shit. I don't know how to say what I'm saying exactly, but it's like an entire. It's like if an entire civilization, a galaxy's worth of civilizations, evolved without ever evolving notions of like propriety or like sort of just interpersonal like.
I don't know though. I think one aspect of this that doesn't get talked about very much is that when you're actually playing the game and participating in this stuff, you're very aware that you're kind of like deliberately creating story out of this.
Yeah.
And I think when people report on this stuff, they go, oh, the people were just playing this game and this crazy story came out of it. But actually, like, the Mittani knows exactly what he's doing when he's making all of these moves, even down to just the guy who's like on a patrol through like a weird sector or whatever. And he's doing it because it's just this weird tiny piece of this
there's a role-playing element to the metagame.
It's very it's kind of LARPy in a way because it really does feel like you're just kind of playing a role within this greater thing that is just going to end up being a weird dumb story on Polygon, which is fine. Like, it's cool.
I totally buy that, and like that makes complete sense. The one like wrinkle in that I think is that makes it just over the line from being pure sort of LARP style role play that makes it that gives it the like traction that to someone on the outside of it can still get sort of invested is when you read about the actual value of real dollars, not because that is like the only thing that matters, but because there are in fact stakes.
It's high stakes LARPing.
And like the fact that I can read a story that's like, oh, and anyway, like this war is running in the neighborhood of like $21,000 of damage currently, and it's probably going to become the biggest war ever, so that's going to go up more, like a lot more than that. Is like, oh man, okay, so all these people who are like carefully constructing this like artifice, they also still really want to win because there is like actually something on the line, and I find that like the weird confluence of those two things, just like the sort of triangle of like real money stakes, like incredibly like a high level of artifice and like pageantry, and then just total bullshit nonsense. Like those three things create like an amazing mixture.
The collision of all of that stuff is what makes it really fascinating. But it's true, like, the fact that there are people deliberately steering towards these collisions for the sake of just, like, savoring it is what makes it
happen.
good.
Like, it can't just be, like, a well-run...
But it is also, like, people who just spend tons and tons of dollars on a car to then race it.
Yes.
You know? I mean... Or maybe to crash them into each other, you know? Like,
right, but the fact that they can crash is what it gives it the weight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, someone might win, or you might lose, or your car might spin out, an explosion will happen, and an ambulance shows up, or whatever. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think... probably a lot of that is credit. You could credit a lot of that to the Goons in general. I think that's kind of their MO, and I think they've just made this game really interesting because of that. Like they start a lot of shit, and they know full well that they're going to lose. You know, and that's just, they're doing it just to do it and see what happens. And
the thing that I was reaching for earlier about this being a sort of weird little pocket world where people fight each other is the thing that I find perpetually interesting about. Who is fighting who is that the Goons have been involved forever, the same way that sort of Something Awful forums has forever been involved in weird internet culture. But I like that Eve is this galactic battle between things that map to a very strange combination of huge internet communities and then actual geographic communities where like Goon Swarm has been in there, but now like all the enemies of the Imperium who is still like has roots in Something Awful. It's the r/Eve subreddit is the rebellion in this case, who are bankrolled by that. So like, I like that element to it quite a lot. That there is a virtual entire pocket galaxy that is just a galactic space battle that at one point was Something Awful versus the Russians.
God.
And now it is Something Awful's like vestiges that have turned into a crazy corporate conglomerate versus Reddit. Like what?
I mean, it is fucking brand wars.
I was just gonna say it's brand wars. It's totally brand wars.
But wait until Domino's gets in on this.
Yeah. But it's not because it's just it's
because it's totally decentralized. It's not.
Oh, it's such a strange, weird thing that it then just maps into an actual space battle. It's like the opposite of The Last Starfighter or something, where instead it's not people playing a video game to then control something in real life. It's actually just like a weird triple inception into a fake thing.
Yeah. I mean, that actually makes it map more cleanly to like 80s and 90s era cyberpunk visions of what all this stuff would be, in the sense that it's like these are bottom up communities of elite hacker.
But in the 80s or 90s version, there'd be a strange, like an outside government guy watching someone's computer terminal, like he'd be like, guy with 3 sunglasses and 2 scarves and like ripped jeans leaning back and presses a button and you hear and he's like, I just cost someone $20,000.
That's just the Matani.
That's true. He would be called the Matani.
Yeah, he would be called the Matani. Yeah,
like in some old Law and Order episode or something.
Yeah,
Murder, She Wrote.
Right. Yeah, that was the name of his book. Murder, He Wrote.
This all ends with the Matani closing, succeeding in his Kickstarter, closing his history, and it says Murder, She Wrote.
Anyway.
Yeah, strange, good thing.
Yeah.
What a bad, dumb piece of shit.
It's pretty good. I'm really glad it exists.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, we might as well mention this. So Andrew Gruen, who was the co-host of Esports Today along with Rob Zachney, which, that podcast unfortunately is like on, like indefinite hiatus, and, who knows, which is a bummer. But Andrew is publishing a book about the early history of or not. Actually, I don't know if it's early or not. I read an excerpt from the early history of Goon, whatever swarm. But he is publishing a book about like the great battles of Eve, and that I think is coming out really soon.
Yeah.
Does anyone know?
I don't know the date.
I don't know.
But that's a really cool thing. And if you want additional reading material about this, you should find Nick's old pieces, his old series from Shack News. If you search for Shack News, which if you don't know, that website is SHACKNEWS, Shack News, Nick Brecken, Eve, and I'm sure you'll find them.
Some stuff.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. It's like the really great pieces.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome, Nick.
If you search for Shack News Chris Ramo barbecue, you might find a really good old article.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you remember that, Nick?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what this is.
It's fine.
Oh, that's just disconcerting.
You wrote some article about like the various heads of different console manufacturing companies all having a barbecue together.
Oh my god! Jesus, what a stupid piece of shit.
It was like it was in script format, right?
Yeah, it was It's really good.
Oh, God.
It was really I remember you were like, if Shack News won't publish this, I'll put it on Idle Thumbs. And I was really hoping they wouldn't publish it so I could have it. Right. So I do want to talk about VR stuff for a minute, because this week it seems like we're in sort of like the domino effect of people actually shipping VR equipment is happening right now, because Oculus Rifts are going out, but also Steam VR went up, is like appearing this week. But the sort of surprise appearance in the Steam VR store that has made me the most happy is like Steam VR store popped up today. We're recording this on Tuesday. And the thing that is surprising the shit out of everyone that has appeared is Ikea has published a Steam VR game on Steam called like the Ikea Kitchen Experience or something like that.
God.
What?
And it is basically you can experience and customize an IKEA kitchen in a Vive room and change all the different like countertop materials. You can open and close all of the cupboards, and you can experience it as an adult or at the height of a child to see if your kitchen is family safe.
That's amazing.
Yes.
What? That's so cool.
Yeah. So
we just moved recently. We're already done with our kitchen, so that's not useful to me in a practical sense, but I would still rather play that than a lot of the things I've seen in VR.
I know. So I feel like just this morning, people seem to be noticing this, or maybe yesterday, and sort of going, what? Huh? I feel like IKEA might have accidentally put out, like, they might have hit, like, the exact sweet spot in the heart of this, where it's like, what does the Steam audience like? They like driving
Weird
a fucking
simulation.
big rig truck across the country for days, or like, moving things around. What, like, I don't know. It feels like IKEA room simulator / browsing.
Did they call it Kitchen Simulator 2016?
No, they fucked up. I don't remember what they called it. Something very generic and sort of like not in a good way. I mean, I think they called it like one of the correct things for Steam people. But man, what is that stupid thing called?
If I just search for IKEA VR. That, by the way, IKEA VR autocompletes to IKEA Vreta Sofa.
Oh, it's called IKEA VR Experience, and the Steam art is totally like a Steam simulator game artwork thing, because it's a picture of an IKEA kitchen that then fades into being a sick, like, glowing blue grid. But just, man.
88% positive reviews on Steam.
Oh.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I love that just out of the middle of nowhere, they're like, what do you guys really want? Yeah, okay, Eve, VR cockpits, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
What Steam audience actually wants is just an incredibly detailed, fully articulated virtual kitchen that they can change the countertops on, and then also see if their kitchen is child safe.
God.
Like,
Meanwhile, cut to their actual kitchen, which is just like piles of plates and just like Taco Bell like wrappers
80s
everywhere.
fake hardwood laminate, just like not even, just...
Whoa, this kitchen's really nice.
Oh man, the best! Be like, use Vive.
I set up my Vive in my kitchen.
Use the Vive to scan your kitchen, and then IKEA VR Kitchen replaces all of it only in VR with a perfect IKEA version.
Right.
Like, okay, we found the handles on your sink and given you the IKEA version where the dials match up, so you can just wear the Vive in your kitchen.
Well, when did they
and
do that?
pretend you're in an amazing kitchen.
Just for your living room.
You have a friend over for dinner. Your friends over for dinner.
They look beautiful.
I've been really remodeling my kitchen is really
hold on.
beautiful. You bring them in, it's just like rat's nest of garbage.
Before your friends come into your apartment, you make them all put Vives on.
Yeah.
It's really nice in here now. Is
the rest of your house just a void?
Yeah, it's the rest of your house. Sorry, IKEA hasn't made a Vive for this yet.
Yeah, the rest of your house is a spaceship.
But it also is really, I mean, I think the other thing that people talked about immediately when the IKEA VR kitchen thing showed up is that scene in Fight Club when he walks through his house and it turns into an IKEA catalog. Which immediately made me think that what I hope the IKEA VR experience actually is doing is you build this kitchen, and then when you take it off an Alt F4 out, and then the next time you open it up, that kitchen is just on fire, and your apartment has been trashed and exploded, and then you are like inducted into a weird secret underground fight.
When you
club.
have the VR headset on, you're Tyler Durden.
Maybe
when you have it off, you're not.
Yes.
Maybe IKEA VR experience is Frog Fractions 2. If you just started finding weird shit in your kitchen after like 2 weeks,
you open a drawer and
amazing.
just a pencil rolls down and you're like, that was not there before. Then you close the drawer and open it again and nothing is in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like it's very slow, a slow burn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
man.
Like if IKEA VR experience is like a desert golf situation, except that somewhere at the end there is actually just a weird thing.
Yeah.
You open up that drawer 3 weeks later, and the entirety of EVE Online is inside of it, basically. Stick your head in there and just see
just the end of Men in Black, like.
Yeah. I mean or just your IKEA VR kitchen peels away and is just basically the inside of Aperture Sciences or something.
Right. Yeah. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was really happy that's just. It's so good that it's just on the Steam store and that it's outside of the game press. There's no talking about this. Then Valve goes, "Hey, the Steam VR store's live. Hey, everyone. Hey." What? IKEA has just secretly has like a Steamworks account that has been like publishing a thing in Valve's backend this whole time. Oh, it's really good.
I'm really pleased. I had no idea.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, I guess you have a reason to get a Vive now, Chris.
Yeah, I do. Apparently, the IKEA VR experience requires a play area of at least 2.5 meters by 1.5 meters.
Of course, it's in meters.
Yeah. So, pretty cool.
Cool.
It's too bad they didn't give the IKEA VR experience an IKEA product name also. That was a failure on their part. But
some like unintelligible.
Some unintelligible fake Swedish name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about the Ikea VR experience.
All right, pretty good. I'm glad that when you said we have to talk about VR, it was like furniture game.
Yeah.
All right, you want to take a break?
Yeah, I guess we should.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, I wonder if you could build furniture that you can't. I hope that's next.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
they'll keep adding up. Maybe Ikea VR Experience 2017.
It'll be from the makers of Fantastic Contraption and that horrible...
Oh, the what was it called? The furniture assembly game?
Yeah.
I can't even remember. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Break.
I have nothing to say.
Video game.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Casper Mattresses. Casper Mattresses are made in the United States of America and sold to you for a shockingly fair price. They arrive at your home or whatever other address in a little box that explodes out with a mattress inside, and it's pretty hilarious and good. And then you have a really nice mattress to sleep on. They're very comfortable. Casper mattresses are great. If you go to casper.com/thumbs and use the code thumbs, you will get $50 towards any mattress purchase on the website.
An already super affordable mattress, like
Yes.
ridiculously so. Also, don't they let you keep those for like 100 days? Is that
Yeah.
the number of days? I've heard about Casper mattresses before.
That is the number of days you have to try your Casper mattress to determine how happy you are with it. And if you are not happy enough, you can return it. They'll pick it back up. You probably won't need to, but that is what they offer you. Mattresses start at $500 for a twin-size mattress and $950 for a king-size mattress. You got $50 towards that by going to casper.com/thumbs and using the promo code thumbs. And they got pillows up there now, too. So you got all your bed stuff. Casper.com/thumbs with the promo code thumbs.
Get all your bed stuff.
Get all your bed stuff. Thanks, Casper.
Get that stuff.
Video game.
Coming soon, Casper VR. Where you can
We'll say,
sit on your couch and
pretend that it's
watch a box explode.
Oh, so
you
the
can use a
shirt-
box to kill a man.
The shirt would be like Casper and Harry's and whatever and Nature Box, and then you also have a pair of boxer shorts that says "And Me Undies."
This week's episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the fastest, easiest, most user-friendly, most complete and versatile way to make your very own professional website, portfolio, blog, or online store without any need to know how to code websites or design them or anything. You pick all your stuff, you drag and drop it around. It's a really great and straightforward way to make a website. And if you go to squarespace.com and use the promo code thumbs, you can get 10% off your first order. And if you sign up for a year, they will throw in a domain name as well. You can get started without putting in a credit card or anything. Just you can immediately get going and start putting your website together. And then when you're ready to check out, use the promo code thumbs. So we have this week another example of a website made on Squarespace using our thumbs promo code. This is from Danny Gallagher, who wrote in with a longer email that I will read in the reader mail section, but he mentions his website for his small indie studio. If you go to houseofwire.co, there's a free Oculus Rift thing up on there, and then a $5 game called Trawl, and some other stuff, and it's pretty cool, and it works on my mobile phone right now, and I'm looking at it. You can find it at houseofwire.co, made with Squarespace. If you would like to make your own
House of
Squarespace, if you would like to rip off these people's websites, you can go to squarespace.com and use the promo code thumbs to get 10% off your first order and a free domain name if you buy it for a year. Squarespace is cool. Get in on that.
Squarespace, get in on that.
Get in on that. It's the new slogan. Officially declared.
Video games.
We're back, I think.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I've been playing or trying to play Hyper Light Drifter, which, Nick, I know you have as well.
I'm also trying to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This game is hard, like to a degree that I did not expect.
No, didn't expect it at all, actually.
Yeah. I actually didn't even know what this game was. I knew of it, and I knew it looked cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually know. I think I basically knew it was sort of like a Zelda.
Well, I thought it was more of an action thing, actually. I mean, basically the degree to which it is a Zelda game, I did not expect. That was the aspect that surprised me, actually.
I see.
I didn't realize there would be like a map, for instance.
Right, okay.
I thought it was a sort of straightforward linear kind of slashy kind of thing.
All right.
Which it is to some extent, but there are these like Zelda.
Yeah, there's a large overworld.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, it's got sort of dungeony things that are like Zelda. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is a cool game that, I mean, it looks really cool. It was made in Game Maker, which is, it's always shocking to me when I see a game that feels like a full scale game.
Yep.
And then I learn it was made in Game
Yeah.
Maker. It's ridiculous what people do with the various game creation tools at this point. I got totally owned when I first tried to play this game because we spent last week cat sitting at Jake's apartment. So we were not at our own home. And I logged into my own Steam account on his computer there. Sorry, Jake. And downloaded Hyper Light Drifter and started playing it. And then when I got back home to my own apartment, I realized that the game does not support Steam cloud saves. So I totally owned myself and had to start over.
What you need to do is just put on your VR headset that syncs to Jake's living room, and then play Hyper Light Drifter from Jake's living room.
Is that how VR works?
I mean, that's how it should work.
Yeah,
I think.
that's probably true.
Yeah.
So this game, you know, like we were saying, is essentially a Zelda-like game. It's like a top-down action adventure thing, but it's just really, really hard.
Yeah.
I think I might be stuck. I'm on a boss battle
I'm
now.
definitely stuck. I'm not even on a boss battle. It's
Yeah.
just a bad room. Like, I'm just getting wrecked over and over again.
I was stuck on a bad room at one point because the game checkpoint saves you. You know, when you make a certain amount of progress, but it checkpoint saves you with the amount of health and healing that you had when you died. So I had an experience where I was heading into a room with like 8 enemies, which in this game, you know, these are not like churn through them enemies. You have to be really careful about not getting hit. And I had exactly 1 hit point left and no healing left. So it was 1-shot kill. It probably took me an hour of dying and restarting from that same checkpoint to beat it. It felt like it just turned into a new version of the game, which was just, this is just a permadeath 1-hit kill game where you have to play it 100% perfectly, can't make a single mistake.
Yeah.
And that's just the situation I'm in now. The end, it was fucking bananas. By the time I beat it, I felt like a champion lord.
Yeah.
You were a Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah, I totally earned that. But then I eventually...
some kind of drifter.
I was some kind of drifter. I eventually completed that and then got through the rest of the dungeon. Now I'm just like stuck on this crazy boss battle, and I don't think I'm ever going to beat it.
Yeah.
And
it's really hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I don't play Souls games, but I'm getting the experience of that, I think, playing this game. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally see that, which is funny because when I started playing the game, it sort of felt to me like to Zelda what Fez was to like Mario or another side-scrolling platformer. I mean, it has a soundtrack by Disaster Piece, which actually sounds very much like the Fez soundtrack, and there's a lot of sort of obscurity in this game. There's like linguistic characters you can't read, and there's no real dialogue.
Yeah.
Things are generally not explained. Like there are menus that I just don't really know what they do. Like there are things where sometimes a screen will pop up and it'll say A to confirm, X to cancel. But as far as I can tell, like they both just do the same thing. I'm sure that's not actually true, but I'm just not sure what's going on. And then there are like things you collect where you like can collect 4 of a thing and then something happens. But like I've done it 3 times and I'm not sure what is happening, or like if I'm working towards something. Like there's just a lot of like clearly intentional obscurity in the game in a way that reminds me of Fez, in the sense that game you kind of just have to keep playing it, and then eventually you can start to like translate the language and all this other stuff. I don't know if any of that stuff is in Hyper Light Drifter, but it feels very intentionally
some form of that is there,
in the way the world is presented. Yeah, like I don't know what the story. I don't know if this game has a plot. If it does, what the plot is, like what my character is, or anything at all. And I that part I kind of like. I sort of like how weird and at sea I feel but oh my god, it's just impossible. Like it's so, I'm sure for some people it's not. I'm sure there are people who are just like, you idiot babies. But as an idiot baby, for me, it's hard.
Yep. Yeah, I'm an idiot baby too, Chris. It's fine.
Yeah. Look at us, Nick.
Yeah.
Reduced.
Yeah.
Reduced to idiot babies.
I was already there.
You've long been an idiot baby.
Yeah. At least when it comes to these games.
Yeah.
I've always been an idiot baby when it comes to this stuff. Like I can't play Souls games. Like I just can't do it.
You're not a precision combat person?
Yeah. I mean, I probably could be if I spent a huge amount of time, but there's just something about these types of games that it's not the kind of system that I want to spend that much time. Like, it's not really a system. It's just get good at these very precise like actions,
Yeah. It's just a different kind of system. I mean, it's funny because I think you and I both, there are certain kinds of like twitchier games that we are actually good at.
That's true.
Like there are definitely games that you and I we're probably sort of similar in the games we're good at. Not entirely.
I guess we have like first person stuff or even like
I'm way better at first person stuff. Yeah.
Just more. Yeah.
But like Chris, I'll watch you clean up at something like Downwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Which like is very is different. Like the rhythm that you have to get into is very different, but that is a game that is entirely about quick reaction stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that it's the same.
No, I know. I mean, it just reveals how tiny different. Like games are such an unusual form, and that just a tiny difference can end up. You can be someone who's like quote good at video games, but there can be a kind of video game where you just don't have that facility.
You could be a quote video game master.
Yeah. Like Downwell and Spelunky both have this sort of navigational element where there's a lot of reflexes and quick thinking, but it is about like reacting to world state. Whereas Hyperlight Drifter has this like bullets coming at you from all directions, and like you need to exactly hit the sword strike at the exact time. And there are cases where in the game where like you have a quarter second of delay after executing a certain action, and then you can't do the thing in that amount of time. And that's like a fighting game style of of skill, and that's just not what I'm as good at. But
I've never been good at fighting games for that reason.
Nor I.
Yeah.
But some people totally are. Like some people can just internalize all of those different rules. But then there are other games that are like nightmarishly fast, where the screen is basically just constantly scrolling, and I can I'm often really good at those games. It's weird because there's nothing that really suggests why. I mean, maybe there is, but like, I don't know why that's the case. But yeah, this game is really hard for me. It's strange because it's a game that gets so much of what Hyperlight Drifter has to offer is like sensory stuff. It's the way it looks and the music and the way it sounds and the way it feels. But that stuff is just kind of inaccessible to you if you don't also like hit this totally separate track of just being really good at the kind of combat that it has.
Yeah.
Which is an odd thing because not usually, but I think often games, or for that matter, like any other things, like, that trade on like a high level of aesthetic novelty or engagement, because it has such a specific aesthetic, it's like, okay, this is not like a lowest common denominator visual style. Like you have to have a certain, like, just enjoy a certain kind of thing to like how this looks and sounds and feels. So you'd think like you'd want that to then be able to hit the biggest cross section of that potentially aesthetically receptive audience as you can.
Yep. But they don't care about that apparently.
No, and these days that's probably fine.
Yeah.
Like there's such an audience for really difficult games of this type that's probably a relatively safe bet. But I was surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably also a situation where there are people who are there are surely tons of people who end up playing this game and are put off by how hard it is, but there are probably also people who see the aesthetics and then find out that they actually like the fact that it's super hard.
I'm sure, for sure.
Like I think Ori and the Blind Forest is a game that I think about with that, because that game is just hard as fuck. Ori and the Blind Forest is like Meat Boy like style precision platforming, but then it's just on a huge Metroid map, but it just also just wrecks you all the time, except that it looks like a cute Disney cartoon or something, or like an anime. It looks like an anime. It doesn't, it looks like it's got sort of like Miyazaki-esque backgrounds and these sort of like beautiful looking animal characters who just get fucking owned all the time. You are owned all the time. And I suspect that probably has that same thing where people will look at it and be sort of totally drawn into the sort of tone and aesthetic of it, and then either completely bounce off it or discover that it's what they liked and didn't know it, or the completely insane tiny sliver of people who are like, what I've always wanted is a game that looks like a Miyazaki movie, but also is a brutal, crazy, like multi-move platformer or whatever, you know.
Or you have people who, I mean, I imagine that these days, especially, you know, just because of how accessible indie games are in a way that didn't used to be, there's probably a decent chunk of people who are just below a certain age, you know, like kids who are attracted to a game like that because of how it looks and are just young enough that they can literally play anything because their brain is just like
learn what it is
and will form itself into whatever shape is required to play that.
I also wonder with things like Ori and Hyper Light Drifter, how much watching a super competent person on a stream impacts how this game is sold and how it's perceived by people.
I thought about that because I'm sure there are a lot of like combos and techniques that I'm just told that it would make the game way easier.
And
for
you
me,
know that if you streamed it,
don't know what
your Twitch chat would be people telling you exactly how to play it better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that probably goes the other way as well. And there's, you know, watch a Hyper Lord.
Do you think you're gonna try? Like, did you bounce off this, Nick, or do you think you're gonna try it more?
I'll probably give it another go.
Yeah.
For that reason, because I think, you know, probably once you unlock once you see the matrix code, it's probably fine, right? You know, I mean,
maybe I'll try and find an FAQ.
Yeah, right.
Game facts.
Watch a video tutorial.
Yeah.
The new FAQ.
Yeah. Man, video tutorials. Ugh. It's really it's
airline food.
No, it's really annoying these days how frequently you just want to find like what must be like a 2-sentence explanation of like, I'm using Photoshop and I need to do this, or like I'm using Adobe Audition.
Hey guys, today I'm going to tell you about the gradient tool.
Oh man.
Oh my god, and it's like a 7-minute video of some like asshole with a huge amount of background noise, like just it's so hard to just find an explanation of how to do a thing in a piece of software that isn't on YouTube. Man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
FAQs don't monetize, Chris.
That's true. Well, that is actually the answer, I suppose, because I remember, like, you'll see just a really dumb explanation of a really simple thing on a YouTube video, but then it'll have like 500,000 views.
Yeah.
And everyone in the comments is like, "Oh, thank God, I finally know how to do this." It's like,
and that guy's like, "Sweet, 500,000 ads exposed."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Half the time, the actual instruction is in the description of the video and not the video itself.
Yeah, but not the key part that you need.
Right. Yeah.
That one where they get to that one checkbox.
Well, now that YouTube allows you to play videos on 2x speed, it's a good tip for speeding through those garbage things. Anyway, reader mail.
Now that
your podcast listener has a 2x speed, you can speed through this garbage podcast to get to the end of it, I suppose.
Get to the reader mail, the part you're all here for.
Yep. Here it is. Daniel Gallagher writes, "Hey, my name is Danny Gallagher. Got into your podcast recently and I love it. Spending a lot of time trying not to bust out laughing on the tube in London. This is an answer to another reader's question and perhaps a different way to you guys answering it. Someone asked you recently how telemetry and metrics and analytics are used in games, and although you provided some great answers that I enjoyed, you answered more from a AAA console and indie background, I think, and I can give you insight from another angle. The evil world of mobile, and myself as a small-time indie dev with experience from mobile." By the way, this is the email from the guy who wrote in with his Squarespace website. This is the full email. "Firstly, I worked at Mind Candy for a long time, and we used analytics to an insane degree. At the start of the project, we would already be using analytics to decide on project names, icons, and key art. For instance, we'd put around 50 icons on Facebook as click-through ads. We would take the data according to which one got the most clicks from our target demographic. I think for the project I was on, this was middle-aged women aiming for classic match 3 play. We would take the winner and do some more concepts and put them up again and whittle them down again and then iterate and repeat. This would go on until we had an icon we felt got clicked a lot by our target audience." Man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
"When we began making the game, we would have things that would tell us exactly how long people looked at screens and how many times they touched certain parts of the screens or buttons. If people quit on certain screens or menus or closed them too quickly to read our money-grabbing advertisements, we would do something like move the close button to a place on the screen that was more difficult to get to or less obvious. We had obvious other things, like how many people quit on load screens, and if we got too big a drop on load screens, there was an American guy in a suit who knew nothing about games who would shout at us and tell us to get those fucking times down. Yep. We had numbers for levels and drop off on certain levels, and we had an actual in-bit editor extension in Unity where we could jump to a certain level and look through the history of matches played on it, all recorded 100%, and press play, and it would build the level and show us exactly every single one of their moves, and we could tweak the game to make it easier or harder depending on how far people were getting before spending money or quitting before spending money. Anyway, apart from all that, I have a bit of a love for these sorts of things now, so I'll end with an anecdote. When I last did Ludum Dare, I made a roguelike game called The Deep, now out on iOS, and I put up test versions incrementally during Ludum Dare using some simple analytics like how far people got and where and how they died. By seeing this data, I could tweak it while I was actively doing the game jam. On day 1, the play sessions were about 15 to 20 seconds. On day 2, I got them up to 45 to 50 seconds, and on day 3, they were nearing 2 minutes. This felt really rewarding because I was shaping the experience way more for players and less for my own desires. We all play games differently, and unless you have a big studio and a big team to test with friends and family, it can sometimes mean you make a game too difficult or weird or hard. Anyway, there are some things. Regards, Danny Gallagher. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard, I'm sure we've all heard anecdotal stories about any one particular version of those things, but hearing, and you always sort of suspect that all that stuff is happening all that stuff does happen all the time with all mobile companies that make big products like that. But man, holy shit.
Yep. Man, going all the way to the point of like before there's even a game, just putting up, I guess, just like dummy ads to see what icons people will click on. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That it would never occur to me to do so. It would never occur to me to do that. Like the stuff about sort of just, do a, heat map of where players died or like, like all that stuff responding to actual gameplay. Okay. Yep. I've never done that. Well, I don't have those tools, but I get it.
It's the equivalent of like box art testing in like a big publisher, I guess. Or
but it's like interesting to have that done. It also feels though like, have your level load and unload, have your save load system done early so that you can build a framework on top of that. This is like have your monetization strategy, user tracking, and metrics data on board beforehand so that you can start building. So that's like, it's a foundational element of the game design process in a way that I think about things like your like gamepad input management or something.
Right.
Like,
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if we have anything else to say about that because we don't know anything about it.
That has nothing to do with any of our lives except that we are all manipulated by its results.
Yep. Well, I mean, because we all know that this happens in reality on everything online. Like stories on websites often will serve two different headlines and A/B test headlines before determining what the best one is based on which one gets more pickup. Like that just like all of this stuff just happens. Like Amazon will price things differently. Like just all of this shit is always going on all the time on the internet now. Like your life on the internet is just constantly being metricized and tested and tweaked according to just mass behavior.
Much like this podcast.
Exactly.
You're listening to the B version of
Man, we've talked about doing that before multiple times. We've talked about the fact that our RSS feed is generated dynamically by the server, so we could feed people variant episodes
I don't know
in a given
what
week.
we would do with that information, though.
Yeah. Sorry for everyone.
That is why we fail.
Not sophisticated enough to...
Sorry for everyone who keeps getting the shitty episode of Idle Thumbs.
There's a way better one.
Yeah.
Just luck of the draw. Yeah. Okay, so... Calix Renault writes, after the story of Nick Brecken's Stardew Valley disaster, I was reminded of times when I've had my most authentic reaction to games result in the total destruction of the game. In Oblivion, I had to steal everything, whether it had resale value or not. If I recall correctly, you couldn't sell things that were worthless, so I had all these bowls and paintbrushes, so many paintbrushes, and after I got my first house in Anvil, I had a place to dump it all. Then I started to want a nice house, so I cleaned it up and moved it all outside to what was supposed to be a temporary staging area on the porch. Eventually, the house was nice, and the pile outside was too formidable, so I did something else. Over time, it became the place where I dumped all the valueless detritus I'd accrued over the course of adventuring, until the frame rate got wrecked and eventually the entire city of Anvil refused to load because of the mess I made. I did a similar thing in Stalker, which made the mistake of allowing me to drag bodies, having those bodies stack on top of each other, and then giving me a giant hole in the ground where, of course, I had to throw all the enemies I'd killed in the nearby town. But dragging bodies into a giant hole just outside of town is slow work. and the A-Life system would just keep spawning traveling squads who would come across my clearly insane activities and try to bring me to justice, so then I had more bodies. Eventually, this too would crash within moments of loading my save, because every single one of those bodies in the pit had to physicalize around each other and had grown into an ever-writhing mass that I imagine hell to look like.
Oh my god, the crazy, yeah, it is a rat king of jiggling ragdoll corpses.
Yep.
Oh no.
Or the time I got so into the Chocobo
rigid
minigame.
body rat king.
Yeah, I was trying to...
Rigid body rat king.
Yeah.
Or the time I got so into the Chocobo minigames in Final Fantasy VII that when I finally tried to go back to the mission, I had no idea where I'd left off or what I was supposed to do. I still don't know. Sometimes it works out, though, like when I stealthily killed everyone aboard the ferry level in Hitman Blood Money and tossed them overboard, finally leaving it to be a ghost ship to pull into the harbor with no explanation. The newspaper didn't consider this noteworthy, simply reporting that my target had been reported missing. I guess somebody wanted the story buried, but I knew. Cheers, Calyx.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I downloaded Blood Money, but I remembered that the first mission is just the worst mission, and didn't make it through that.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Terrible.
Is that the pier? Is that?
Yeah. It's just sort of the tutorial thing. It did though point out to me that the new Hitman is actually pretty fucking good. Like, my memory of Blood Money is that it's the perfect Hitman, but it's pretty crufty in many ways. And going from this one to Blood Money, I was like, cool. They did a pretty good job with this, weird mess of craziness.
Well, speaking of Hitman, I think we actually got I don't remember if we got an email or not, but there were some forum posts about Hitman on the Idle Thumbs forums in response to our discussion last week. So I didn't have those pulled up because they weren't reader mail, but since you brought up Hitman, maybe I'll actually go and find that on the forums. What was it? What was that? Last week or the week before that?
I think we talked about it both weeks.
I think it was, yeah.
Most recently last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did Nick, did you read the thread, the Idle Thumbs forum thread?
No, I didn't see it. No.
Well, okay. So the Effin' Crow writes, this was the first reply to last week's Idle Thumbs episode on the forums. The Effin' Crow writes, on Hitman Talk, the events in the level seem to be a combination of real time and when you encounter them. This can lead to some seams in the game showing. For example, in the Paris level, there's a woman at the party who is basically the woman Jake talks about, the fashion critic the people of the show don't like.
I knew she'd be there.
I actually found her too, yeah.
She's long been critical of the people running this party. You can eavesdrop on a conversation she has with a friend who works with her and find out that they have some sort of mole who's been telling them things about what shady things your targets are up to. She talks about how she's going to use this information to blackmail the targets because her fashion magazine is faltering and she needs money to keep it going. At a later point in the level, Victor runs into this woman while strolling throughout the fashion show. She makes some threats about knowing what's going on and what activities the targets are really up to. Victor laughs it off and walks off, but when he does, he steps out of the party and goes to a corner of the garden to have a phone conversation with Dahlia, telling her they have a mole somewhere. The problem with this last scenario is that it seems to really only trigger when you see the confrontation happen. I've never seen Victor's target marker go out to the garden without me being close to trigger the conversation. This means it's possible Dahlia is already dead when it triggers. Unfortunately, they didn't check for this, so instead of him trying to call her and she never picks up, he has a conversation with a dead woman. It's a weird thing for them not to catch because they pay attention to so many other details. For instance, at one stage I was trying to take out a guard who was talking on his cell phone to another guard. I was too quick in choking him out, and then I raised an alarm because the guard on the other end of the phone heard his boss being choked out over the phone and came running. Also, the idea of releasing levels from old games as a Best of Hitman thing is something IO Interactive has a bit of a track record of doing. The third game in the series, Hitman Contracts, is halfway to this. Contracts had 12 levels in it, 5 of which were actually recreations of good levels from the first 2 games.
That's cool.
Yeah. I heard people say that some promotional material for the new Hitman also included up-resed allusions to Blood Money missions and other like classic missions, so people think that it's going to show up as a pack at some point.
Yeah. One other clarification for the forums, from the forums, this is Cordios, also in the thread from last episode, writes, when Nick failed the mission, it was because he was playing an escalation mission instead of the main mission. Escalation missions have specific requirements for what you're wearing and how you killed a target, which is why you fail immediately for doing it wrong. This person adds, most Hitman levels run without you. The Paris level will run till completion if you let it. There have been a few missions in previous games that will actually fail if you let them run long enough. There is a mission in Blood Money where you're tasked with taking out 3 agents of a competing assassination agency and saving a government official from them. If you don't stop the payment briefcase from getting to them, you have to move quickly to stop the assassination from happening. I'm pretty sure there are levels where targets would leave eventually if you let it run long enough. So, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. No, I knew that was the case in Blood Money, but I was interested whether they had done that with this game. My experience with the sort of like the actual level in Hitman Showstopper or whatever it's called is that it, to the effing Crow's point, like it mostly is like, observation, triggers the actual event, which is fine in most cases. But yeah, like you said, there are some loopholes. Man, I impersonated the guy, like the fashion icon, like Helmut or whatever.
The actual model.
Yeah, which is hilarious because, of course, they made him look basically like the Hitman guy, so that when you impersonate him, people are just like, oh, it's kind of like, I mean, all right, fine. Yeah, they didn't really check for that either because I'm just walking around as this super famous guy following, like, just in the room with the target who should know, like his star, like, fashion dude, and he doesn't say anything. Everybody else is like, oh, hey, fashion man, and that guy's just like completely ignores you. I was just following him with a knife behind my back for like a half an hour while he makes phone calls.
He wasn't like, Helmet, why are you here?
Yeah, he didn't say anything about it.
He didn't say, oh, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. It's a good game, though.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you think you accidentally played an Escalation version of that mission?
I have no idea. Well, the menus are just insane. It's impossible to tell what's going on. I mean, it's basically just it's the new way of doing a menu where it just sort of suggests what you should play next, right? So I probably just clicked a thing without realizing that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
There's just so much in that game that I still don't even, like, I realized the other day that you can, like, unlock other weapons and things in those missions by doing stuff. I don't even know what you can do to do that, but I know it's possible, I guess.
They built a big old thing.
Yep. Anyway, I'm excited to play more of it, though. It's good.
Have they said when the next one is?
This, like, later this month, I think.
Okay.
That's cool.
Hitman 2.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hitman 2 2016.
Yeah.
Hitman 2016 2.
This is pretty good for a final email. Brendan Hennessy writes, Mr. Payback and its ilk. Hey, Thumbs. In episode 255, Awkwardness and Harmony, Chris talks about the infamous audience-controlled film Mr. Payback and said,
Mr. Payback.
There's a reason it only happened once. In fact, the company behind that movie made 3 other interactive films in the same year. I'm Your Man, a dismal romantic action comedy about an informant who confuses a hapless everyman for her FBI contact. Ride for Your Life, a goofy sci-fi movie starring Adam West, where the protagonist has to win a bicycle race to save the Earth from aliens. And Bombmeister, which seems to have been a serious action movie about disarming a bunch of bombs in an old mansion. Bombmeister. All 4 of these movies were total disasters and completely tanked. I'm Your Man somehow got a DVD release years later, but Bombmeister never even made it to theaters, and all copies of Ride for Your Life and Mr. Payback have been destroyed.
By the Bombmeister. But still at large.
I've attached a bunch of videos so you can get a sense of what these movies were like, including a genuinely fascinating making-of video from I'm Your Man. Best, Brendan. I watched the I'm Your Man, 10-minute behind-the-scenes making-of, and it was really depressing.
Yeah.
People at the thing kept being like, just nobody knew what they were doing, and, it was just, that's what made it so amazing to be on this set. People just didn't know anything. The director was, learning about film for the first time, and, and it was, and it just sounded like a complete disaster, and then they'd be like, and anyway, that's why it was so great.
Oh, no.
It's the reason for something.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, man.
Bombmeister.
Yeah, Bombmeister. Man, that's so funny. I remember seeing ads for Mr. Payback on TV in the mid-90s, but I definitely never heard of any of the rest of these.
No, you'd remember.
Only 90s kids will remember Bombmeister.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it for
the
podcast this week, probably.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Oh, I should mention, is a dumb thing. It's not worth mentioning, really, but
But you're gonna mention it.
I'm still like
I'm the bomb meister.
yeah.
You found, but
Goodbye. Anyway, I'm still occasionally playing the odd game of that NBA 2K16,
yeah.
and I just wanted to mention that I realized the other day, I mentioned on the podcast that they call you freak, which is short for frequency vibrations or whatever, because there's a story component to this game. But there's also a secret menu where you can specify a secondary nickname, one of which is the Wizard.
That's a pre-selected.
That's
nickname?
a pre-selected thing. So now the commentators are calling me the Wizard, and also I traded myself to the Washington Wizards. So now it's just the Wizard starting lineup. The Wizard. It's really good.
oh wow.
Anyway,
Oh man, that's great.
I'd recommend anybody who
The Wizard
owns that
of the
weird
Wizards.
game. Yeah,
The
yeah.
Wizards.
Yep.
Wizard. Jesus.
Anyway,
Well,
now we're done.
thanks for listening to this week's episode of Idle Thumbs. If you liked us, please consider telling a friend or spreading word of our podcast on whatever your online communities are. It helps us out a lot. It's really the main way we have to spread the word. You can follow us on Twitter at Idle Thumbs. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. And we have other podcasts on our network, the Idle Thumbs Network, at idlethumbs.net.
The Wizard.
Including the very recently launched limited run series Playscape LA, which is hosted by Teddy Deef, who's one of the developers of Hyper Light Drifter, which we talked about, and he is doing a twice weekly interview show with people in the LA game scene. He talked to Ashley Birch, the voice actress. He talked to most recently he talked to, I think, the guy behind Hot Pepper Gaming. I need to listen to this episode because I've heard it's actually a really good one. I'm not sure who's going up next because his most recent episode was delayed by a day, I think, because of the post,
Because Hyper Light Drifter
dealing
came
with
out.
the launch of Hyper Light Drifter. Yeah, but it's really cool. You can find it at idlethumbs.net/playscape. Goes up twice a week, and it's really fun. Idle Weekend with Rob Zachney and Danielle Riendo is still chugging along. A really great podcast. I really enjoyed their most recent episode this week.
Let's Play themed episode?
Yeah. Yep. About Let's Plays and game reviews and stuff. And that's at idlethumbs.net/Idle Weekend. And the Idle Book Club, featuring me and Sarah Argadale, we'll probably record the next episode about Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. We'll probably record that this coming weekend. So look for that at idlethumbs.net/book club, I guess. Is that the URL?
I'll tell you, host of the Idle Thumbs Network, what the URL of your own podcast is.
Thanks, Jake.
It is idlethumbs.net/idle book club.
Okay, there it is.
Use the offer code thumbs at checkout to save 10% off your free podcast.
Yep. All right. All our shows are at idlethumbs.net/shows. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.